Because no kid ever had that eating grin from a video game. Welcome back to the next episode of Gen X and Millennial Memes, where we look back on years gone by for those last good memories. Please consider hitting that like button, and if you haven't already, smash subscribe, click the bell, and select all notifications so you don't miss new episodes. If you'd like to submit memes, links, news articles, or anything else, you can send that to our email, akornzstash@gmail.com. This can also be found down below in the video description. But enough of that, let's jump into today's episode. Text on the cigarette box. Aisle on a live view. 1980s break room. Everyone here knows this was no ostrich. Thou shalt not try me. Mom, 24/7. Yep, very true. When you needed the pizza, yesterday. Whoever did this is pretty smart. Because since they made this an advertisement for the restaurant, they get to write it off on their taxes. Who remembers wearing a concert t-shirt the next day to school? Please be patient with me. I'm from the 1900s. That just sounds so wrong. For so many reasons. How many of you guys have seen the modern public school grading scales? Back in our day, what was considered a failing grade is now considered between a C plus or a B minus. Of course, I'm pretty sure they've done away with the minus and plus scale as well, because that wouldn't be inclusive. I'm this old. Yeah, and they probably just took that picture last week. Back when furniture was actually lasted. My young co-workers asked me to show them pictures of me in high school. I said I'd go home and dig some out. They said, "Can't you just look on your phone?" And I laughed and laughed and laughed. And then I cried. Me looking at my birth certificate because people think I was born yesterday. Do you remember ice cold sodas and glass bottles? Yes, I do. And it tasted a whole lot better than the stuff they got today. Although there is a couple sodas today that you can still buy in a glass bottle, and they're even made with real sugar, but you usually don't see them all that often. Gen X never thought they would live past 25, so they just accepted it. And now they're all... This is very true to me personally on a couple different levels. For one thing, I grew up thinking the Messiah would return by the time I was 25. But looking at the things that's taking place these days, I surely hope it isn't much longer. When I say the other day, it could be any time between yesterday and my birth. Well, that's almost true. Because a lot of times when we're thinking about something, it seems like it was just the other day. If all of our childhood homes were summed up in one picture. Last month, I did the unthinkable and finally threw out that box of unloved cables that I dragged with me throughout adulthood. Today, I realized that I needed one of them and have no idea how to find a replacement. Consider this a warning to you all. I've got several boxes of cable stored up in the loft in my barn. That way, at least if I ever need a cable, I can still go up there and search through them. What's the one thing you don't like on your burger? Actually, I don't like much of anything on my burgers. My burgers usually have cheese, mayonnaise, and some pepper. Then on the side, I might have a little steak sauce or ketchup. What about you guys? Do you like your burger loaded down with a salad? Or do you only like a few select toppings? It's not the way I look that reveals my age. It's my use of complete sentences and punctuation when I text. I don't know if I would agree with this. The first text messaging that we all done was on a regular dial pad where you had to hit each button 1 to 3 times to get the letter you needed. So I think most of us tried to figure out how to shorten the messages down to as few letters as possible. Now these days is a little different since we actually have a full keyboard. Let the empathy flow through you or whatever. Well, even though I didn't feel like it today when I was mowing my grass and at 95 degrees outside, but summer is coming toward a close. And we're soon going to be heading into fall, which means we're going from green to the fall colors. So along with that, we have YLYL orange. It tastes like pumpkin spice, and it's still made with people. Don't be so hard on yourself. The mom in E.T. had an alien living in her house for days and didn't notice it. That's actually true. Kinda sums up how things were back then. Me at 18, I can do whatever I want to do. Me at 50, I can do whatever 800 milligrams of ibuprofen will allow me to do. That is true to some degree. More often for me, though, is what my migraine headaches will allow me to do. Mom, I want a normal picture for the church directory, okay? Me. The world. Why is everything so messed up these days? Gen X. Called it. I've made some bad choices in life, but I've never bought a pair of Crocs. Hey now, what's wrong with Crocs? They're comfortable. Although I will say I can't stand the ones with holes in them. If you don't know, Crocs does make a solid pair of shoes. They're just a little difficult to find. The only place I've ever been able to find them at is on Amazon. Who remembers pulling a soda out of one of these machines? A country where a tiny outgroup prints the money, owns the media, controls the politics, is an occupied country as in taken over. Well, this actually goes in my Laugh While the World Burns series, but it is true. Yet again, we come back to the best mullet contest. You guys have mentioned it before, and I have no idea why he is never included. But yes, I concur. Angus MacGyver, aka Richard Dean Anderson, has always had the best mullet. How many of you guys remember rubber band guns? I don't ever remember having one this fancy. The only one I ever remember had a clothespin for a trigger. It's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are? In other words, the streetlights has been on for a while now. Are your children home yet? The reason why Gen X doesn't look their age is because we are well preserved with all of the Aquanet we used in the 80s. 325 Dodge Chargers were used in the 6 years of production on the Dukes of Hazzard. I wonder how many guys went to look at a Dodge Charger and just thought, man, what a Bondo bucket. I found out after 41 years that there are no holes in the pool tables in the Beat It video. I had this meme back some time ago in some previous episodes, and I said something to the effect that I had never noticed that before, and that I had no idea what kind of pool table wouldn't have pockets. But you guys posted a whole bunch of replies in the comments. There was a good number of people that said that these were snooker tables. However, I believe that snooker tables actually do have pockets. There was also a good number of people that said that these are actually billiard tables. And I can't remember now what you guys called it, but there was a specific type game that was only played with a few balls. And I believe the second table in the background there is showing that. Looks like it has 2 white balls and 1 red ball. I never knew that these type tables existed, or what type game would be played on them, until all of your guys' comments. So just remember, this is also an educational channel. What Millennial and Gen Z coworkers expect when they finish a task in the office. Gen X managers. When you start eating the food you have at home instead of eating out. Not these days, it isn't. You're broke after you go to the grocery store. You're just more broke if you go out to eat. In high school, I was so excited to become a senior. I'm not too excited now. Nope, certainly ain't. Baseballs is a better Star Wars movie than the entire Disney Star Wars trilogy. If you agree with this, cast your vote by hitting that like button. Gen X parents when they kicked us out of the house to go play with our friends. If he unalives, he unalives. How many of these jingles do you remember? I'm not going to read all these. You guys can pause the video if you want to. But I'd say most of us remember all of these. When the game was loading and you saw your reflection on the screen. Is that a clear Super Nintendo? Or is it in some kind of security case? Looks like it's in the security case. Rob Zombie looks like the ghost of Macho Man Randy Savage. They're not wrong. Do not trust this guy to get you concert tickets. What song are they listening to? Drop your answers down in the comments. You know you're getting old when your childhood toys start getting called collectibles or antiques. Or when you see them in a museum. Growing up in the 70s and 80s, there were so many wonderful fake tobacco products to choose from. Just the fact that the cigarette companies themselves also made the candy cigarettes just made it that much better. The 80s. Many memories, no evidence. Yep, before everybody had a smartphone and cameras were everywhere. Me watching my kid on their iPad. You play the dumbest games. Me in 1992. If you know, you know. The decline of civilization started when they stopped putting toys in cereal boxes. Do you guys know that overseas, in a lot of countries, that the companies are not allowed to put cartoon characters on their cereal boxes because of the ingredients and the high sugar content that's in the cereal? Because a lot of kids just want cereal because of the cartoon character? Back in the day, we had to get up and walk to change the TV channel, uphill both ways in the snow. That's a nice touch with the film cartridge vase. Be honest, who can still drive this? I'm sure most of us here on the channel can. The 1980s. People wanted to know what the future would look like. In 2024, people want to go back to the 1980s. If only. I'm not gonna lie, I always rooted for YLYL. As a child, I could be entertained for hours by just picking these up and letting them spin. Yep, these were the original fidget spinners. And you didn't even have to buy them. If the person who named walkie-talkies named everything. I'm not going to read all of these, but it is pretty funny. If you know about this, you had a great childhood. If you were a teen in the 80s, you most likely wore these. 80s kids didn't fear clowns. We watched clowns for breakfast. Yeah, literally. These, I can still smell them. How many of you guys do you remember these markers? Poltergeist house for sale, $1.2 million. That means back in the day it'd have been what? 150,000? 200 maybe? What's the first 80s movie you think of when you see Patrick Swayze? There's a bunch of movies you could pick from. Roadhouse, obviously. I'd say the next one comes to mind as Ghost. What about you guys? Don't worry about getting older. You're still gonna do dumb stuff. Only slower. Well, that doesn't help any. The first song that comes to mind when you see Phil Collins. Well, obviously, In the Air Tonight. What's your guys' favorite Phil Collins song? Gen X, the only generation to be 30 at 15 and still 30 at 50. And they say you can't hear a picture. I crashed my bike in 1986 and scraped my knee. We didn't have internet then, so I'm telling you now. If all you did was scrape your knee, I don't think you was doing very much. 2024. Still listening to 80s and 90s music. As a kid, did you ever knock on people's doors and run away before they answered? Well, guess what? They're hiring. This is pretty true these days. If you're not out there already to get the package, they'll just bring it up on your porch and throw it down. And half the time, they don't even bother knocking on your door. When I was a kid, I thought this little piggy went to market meant that it went shopping. I think most of us did, or at least I did. But I don't eat pork, so I kind of have an excuse. As a kid, I wanted to play in this room so bad. Saved by the Bell premiered 35 years ago, August 20th, 1989. I know it's tragic that the Wi-Fi isn't working, but let me tell you a story of catastrophic proportions from my childhood. I know I had this happen plenty of times with cassette tapes, but I don't remember if I had it happen with a VHS tape. If their names are Cliff and Claire Huxtable, then who the heck are the Cosbys? It was like some other people said, the Cosby Show sounds a lot better than the Huxtable Show. Kids today will never know that this was the original Star-Lord. And I'll end this episode with this. Enjoy the little things in life, because one day you'll look back and realize they were the big things. That is very true. Too bad we don't have more fond memories to look back on. Before I end this episode, I want to give a special thanks to the viewers who help support the channel using the super thanks. I also want to thank all of you who help support the channel by buying things through the Akornzstash merch store. If you like t-shirts, hoodies, coffee cups, aprons, and some other things, I have a couple Gen X designs available. All of your guys' help and support is greatly appreciated. I thank you all for watching. Take care. Stay safe. This is Akorn. Over and out.